Hi everyone, Ashley here and welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Today is a super fun video because it's part of the Fawn Fans YouTube Pop series and this is our winter installment. So for this particular installment, we are all sharing creations that are sort of winter or Valentine's Day themed, featuring lots of Fawn products. Particularly, I'm using some of their new products, which are from their latest Valentine's Day release, which was released back in December of 2021. So without further ado, let's get into the card making. I'm using the Magic Picture Changer die today. This is a die that's new to me. My husband got it for me for Christmas, which was super exciting. He might have had some help in guiding him on, getting that particular product, potentially. But I love this die. It's super fun, and basically how it works is that you stamp out two different scenes, and you can pull a tab that allows the whole card to change from scene 1 to scene 2. So in my case, I'm stamping out a scene with an empty bowl and a box of milk, and then that will change when you pull the tab to the second scene, which is going to be a bowl of cereal and a glass of milk. So it's almost as if the critters had taken that empty bowl and the box of milk and poured it to make into cereal and a cup of milk for breakfast. So I thought this was a really fun sort of use of that magic picture. As I've been talking, you've been watching me stamp. I'm using my stamp positioner to stamp out these scenes, and I'm just stamping out the first scene here with some black Copic friendly ink because I'm going to be using some Copic markers to color these little stamped images in. So I stamped out the bowl and then I stamped out the milk carton. And as I've been stamping them, I'm adding masks over top. So these are just the same image stamped onto some post-it tape or a post-it note that's just fully sticky on the back. And then I cut it out and just placed it right over top of that image. I'm doing this because I'm going to be doing some ink blending over these images in a few moments, and I don't want the ink blending to get onto the image. Also, as I stamp out each of the images, so for example, as I stamped out the bowl, I wanted the bowl to be in the front. So then I masked it, and then I could stamp out the milk carton, which will then appear as if it's behind the bowl. So that's a really neat thing about masking, is you can kind of make things look like they're in front or behind by stamping it first, then masking it, and then stamping something else second. But I am masking everything I'm stamping because I'm going to be doing some ink blending. So there I've stamped out the second scene, which is that bowl of cereal and glass of milk, and I've masked those too. So now coming back to this first scene, this is the one with the empty bowl of cereal and the milk carton. I'm doing some ink blending around those masked images. Now because they're masked, the ink blending will not go onto the images themselves. I'm starting with a very light pink that was Spun Sugar Distress Oxide ink, and then I'm coming in with a medium pink. I started with Kitsch Flamingo, but I didn't like it. I wanted something darker, so then I brought in Worn Lipstick Distress Oxide, which is a little bit of a darker shade. And I'm just blending back and forth between the two colors until I get a nice blend, sort of starting in a circular motion around the objects with Spun Sugar and then blending out to Worn Lipstick again in a bit of a circular fashion, blending back and forth. I'm doing this blending on both scenes. So here I'm doing it on the second scene with that bowl of cereal and cup of milk. Again, they're both still masked. I'm going to continue with my ink blending while I have my inks out. So here I have a card front. This is just a piece of paper that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I have this Magic Picture Changer cover piece, which comes as part of a die in the Magic Picture Changer add-on die set. Basically, it cuts out this rectangle that will cover your Magic Picture scene so that when you change the scene from the first to the second scene, it happens in that little window. And this rectangle just sort of frames it nicely. So I'm just using the same pink colors to ink blend onto these pieces so everything is the same. The blending behind the scenes in the Magic Picture Changer itself matches the blending I'm doing on the rest of the card. I am bringing in some darker reds to continue the blending towards the outer edges. So here on this background piece, I started with Worn Lipstick and now I'm blending to Festive Berries, which is sort of a pinky red color. And as always, I'm just going back and forth between the two colors and using my blending brushes until I get a nice blend, kind of maintaining that circular blending, so kind of radiating out from the center. Now I wanted to add a little bit of extra sparkle, so I'm taking some gold watercolor, mixing it up with water, and splattering it out onto my pieces. Both the scenes from the Magic Picture Changer and these background pieces, so the background cover piece for the card as well as that rectangle cover piece for the Magic Picture Changer. So all of those will get some nice gold sparkle. Okay, now it's the best part, time to pull back the masks and reveal the little pictures beneath that are completely clear. I'm sorry my cat is blocking them at this very moment, it's bad timing, but she loves to be involved in my videos. You'll see her probably a lot more, especially if you watch my other videos, you probably have seen her a lot. So as I pull those back, you can see that the images beneath them are nice and clean because they were protected by the masks as I was doing my blending. This is always like a fun part, it's sort of like a reveal, and you get to see those fun images beneath. And you can also see now how the bowls look like they're in the forefront and the milk looks like it's behind. So I wanted to color these images in with my Copic markers. So I'm just bringing in some orange colors for this bowl, and I'm starting with the darkest shade of Copic marker towards the edges and bringing it in with a lighter shade of orange towards the center. And I find when objects are meant to be round, like this bowl, it helps to put the darker shades at the corners because it kind of helps to give it that rounded look. Now on the second scene here with the bowl of cereal, I also wanted it to be the same orange bowl color because it's supposed to be the same bowl, it's now just being filled with cereal. So I'm using the same Copic markers and the same sort of coloring technique to color that in. For the milk carton, I'm coloring it in very simply. I'm just taking some very light blue Copic markers and coloring in the carton part, starting with the darkest and sort of the bottom right corner and working my way up towards the left with the lighter shade and blending those together. Then on that band that says milk, I'm just going to bring in a very light gray Copic marker and just fill in some shading there as well, and then that's it, very simple. Similarly with this glass of milk, I'm keeping it super simple with just a little bit of gray shading and then some very light blue on the glass itself. I'm just finishing the cereal by coloring it in with some rainbow colors for the little heart pieces of the cereal. And then I'm bringing in a light, warm gray marker and just sort of shading the bottom of these objects just to ground them a little bit and help make it seem like they're actually on a surface rather than just floating in thin air. As a final touch, I'm just using a white jelly pen to add a few little accents to these images, and then they're all done. Now I'm die cutting these images with the dies from the Magic Picture die set that create these scenes. So the one on the right will create scene 1. You can tell it's because it's the longer die. And the one on the left will create scene 2. So I'm just making sure that those are in place, it's easy to do because those windows are open so you can see where it's going to cut. I'm taping them and then I brought them over to my die cutting machine, and here you can see the final product. So now we're going to assemble this Magic Picture Changer, and this might seem a little bit complicated, but trust me, it's actually not once you get going. So I'm taking the first scene piece and I'm folding over that long piece at the top towards the bottom, so that it creates almost like this folded pocket. I'm using my scoreboard, by the way, to reinforce these score lines. I find sometimes in my die cutting machine they don't score perfectly and therefore they don't fold perfectly, so I like to reinforce them with my scoreboard just to make sure that they get a really nice fold. So I reinforced that top fold and folded it down, and now I'm reinforcing each side fold, and you'll see what I mean here in a moment as I start folding them. So here I go, I'm folding those side folds in. I'm starting with the bottom one, and I'm just starting in the middle and then folding it out towards the edges. And it forms a small little sort of line edge along the edge of the Magic Picture pocket. I'm doing it now at the top too, and just using my bone folder to really press that down nicely. And you can see that that second scene piece fits in between those lips. It almost creates like a track for the Magic Picture Changer. So once you have those little side pieces folded down, you want to take some double-sided tape, a very thin piece, so this is 1/8 of an inch thick, and you want to put it on the inside of those track folded pieces and then fold it down. This will just tape it down. So this is what helps you create that track, because you're basically just taping those folds down to create a little bit of elevation on the side of the Magic Picture Changer. Helps you create sort of a pocket for that second scene piece and helps it stay in place as well. So here I'm just folding that second flap down at the top there, and it sticks down nicely with the tape. Then you want to put some double-sided tape on the top of those pieces as well, because you're going to be folding that pocket piece down and enclosing the whole thing, and this is how it's going to stick together. So I'm just putting some double-sided tape on the top piece, and now I'll put it on the bottom piece, but I'm not going to take the release paper off yet because I'm not done assembling the Magic Picture Changer yet. So I'm just putting that double-sided tape on there for now. So I've got it on the top and on the bottom, and now it's time to bring in that second scene piece. So you just insert it into the slot that's created at the top of that pocket, and then when you turn the whole thing over, you'll see that your second scene piece is behind the first one. Now that first scene piece has these little sort of slot pieces that go into the notches of the second scene piece. I'm just doing it here one by one. You can see I'm taking each sort of strip of paper on the first scene piece and inserting it into the notch that matches it on the second scene piece behind it. And once that's done, you can just flip the whole thing over. Make sure that your second scene piece is within those tracks so it's not overlapping with any of the tape. It should be nestled in there very nicely. And then what you can do is you can take that release paper off of those edge pieces, and this is how you're going to close the whole mechanism into your Magic Picture Changer. So now I'm just taking that double-sided tape off from the top and from the bottom, and then I'll fold the whole piece over the whole back of the pocket, and I'm just kind of holding it in place so it folds really nicely and keeps really flat. And then your magic picture changer is essentially done in terms of the mechanism. So now that I flipped it over, you can see that when you pull that tab, your second scene shows up in front of the first scene. I will say, for me anyways, it definitely takes a couple kind of pull up and down before the paper sort of gets used to the movement. So it seems a little bit stiff at first, but if that happens to you, just keep trying. And I find that after trying it a few times, the paper sort of gets used to that movement and goes a little bit more smoothly. So once you've done that, you can take your cover piece and just tape that right on. You do have to be careful where you put the tape. I would focus it on the diagonals and at the top and bottom of that rectangle so that you don't interfere with the moving pieces beneath. Okay, so I've skipped ahead a little bit and prepared a whole bunch of pieces that are going to go into this card. The first one is this pull piece, which comes as part of the Magic Picture Changer die set. And this basically just acts as a stopper for the pull tab and also tells the recipient that they should pull because it has a little arrow on it. So I'm just gluing that on with some liquid glue to that pull tab, and there you go. Next, I'm gluing this background piece that I had blended earlier onto a card base. So I have a 4.25 by 5.5 inch A2 size card here in landscape, and I'm just using some liquid glue to glue that piece directly down onto it. Next, I'm going to be assembling a floor for my scene. So I cut out a rectangle in a white wood grain cardstock and a very thin strip in brown wood grain cardstock to act as sort of like the baseboard for the floor. So I glued that brown piece onto the white, and now I can glue that whole white piece down onto my card base just towards the bottom because again, this will be the floor. I cut out the same pieces but used the die for the Magic Picture Changer cover to cut them out so that it matches that shape of the Magic Picture Changer. And this is just so that that floor kind of acts continuously throughout the whole card, even over top of the Magic Picture Changer piece. So first I cut out a piece of white wood grain cardstock using that rectangle piece. I cut out another thin strip of brown wood grain cardstock, and then I'm just gluing that brown wood grain cardstock onto those top little notches. And then finally I can glue that whole thing down onto that Magic Picture Changer cover plate so that it covers sort of that bottom section. And you'll see that when I put this onto my card, it will line up with the floor that's already on the card. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just taking some liquid glue onto the back of that Magic Picture Changer mechanism, and then I can glue it straight down onto my card base. And I'm just lining up that floor so that the baseboards are in the same position and everything is a nice straight line. I stamped out the sentiment, which says, "I think you're awesome," onto a white banner piece, and I'm just using some liquid glue to glue that down directly over that Magic Picture Changer mechanism. Now it's time to decorate the card and finish it off with all of these cute little images that I have stamped, colored, and cut out. And I actually did all of this coloring anyway, in a previous video, which you can check out on my channel. It posted just a few days ago if you're watching this live, and that video focused on the coloring. So if you do want to see these images colored, check out that video. But for now, I'm just taking these colored images and assembling them on my card in a way that I think is cute and just going about and gluing them all down to the scene. For some of them, I'm using foam, especially those skunks that are off to the sides because those are sort of on top of the Magic Picture Changer, so they needed a bit of elevation. But how cute are these skunks sort of holding these little fruits and different foods and the drink? And I stamped out the sentiment, "No, seriously," in a little speech bubble so the second skunk can be saying that. So the whole sentiment reads, "I think you're awesome, no, seriously." And as you can see, as I move that up and down, the scene changes, which is super cool. So thank you so much for watching. Please check down in the description below for more information on the Lawn Fawn Fans YouTube hop, as well as where to hop to next. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!